Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the June 18th, 2019 Post Falls City Council meeting. Clerk will note that all council members are present. And we do have first of all, there's one public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak on the public hearing tonight, there are forms on the podium in the back. Please fill them out, bring them up to Shannon, our clerk. We do have a couple of announcements. The Tullamore Park dedication Friday, June 21st at 5:30 p.m. Come help celebrate the opening of our new 8-acre park with paved trails, shelters, 3 pickleball courts, basketball court, restrooms, large children's play area, splash pad, and a 35,000 square foot amphitheater. Movie in the Park, Despicable Me 3, Friday, 7 p.m. at Tullamore Park. Bring your blankets and chairs, hosted by the Post Falls Park and Recreation Department, Post Falls Police Department, Sea Rights, Ace Hardware, and Numerica Credit Union. Free popcorn provided by Her Group, Coeur d'Alene. Post Falls Police Department Coffee with the Cop is on Wednesday, June 26th from 9 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. at Super One Foods, 805 East Polston Avenue. And the city recently applied for renewal of our wastewater discharge permit in the Spokane River. DEQ has accepted the application, and our existing permit will be extended until DEQ completes a new permit. This application is a critical part of maintaining our discharge permit process and our commitment to providing clean water and protecting the environment by the Water Reclamation Division. Thank you to Craig Bornpaul for leading this effort, to Elisa Giersdorf and Adam Tate for their assistance, and to the full operation staff. And that permitting process is a huge endeavor, so thank you to all involved. And tonight we have some police department awards. Chief, am I turning it over to you?
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Pat Knight, your police chief. And tonight's another exciting night for the police department as we get to recognize some of the great work being done by our staff. We always enjoy these times, bringing the folks before you, some of the staff before you, getting a chance to put a name to a face and some of the great work that has been done. So I realize it looks like there's a few awards there, but please keep in mind that one of those instances, 3 or 4 people were on. Sergeant Harrison is on vacation. We did not require him to come back from Oregon and miss time with his family to be here, but we'll give that to him at a later time. If we could have Officer Melissa Gatfield come forward, please. The awards. I'll have Captain Mueller up here assisting me as well. I'll have you come up front, Melissa. So by order of the Chief of Police on this date, Officer Gatfield is hereby awarded the Distinguished Service Award. On February 20th, 2013, the City of Post Falls Police Department established the Distinguished Service Award. The Distinguished Service Award is presented to the department members who display exceptional devotion to duty under adverse conditions or demonstrate special faithfulness or perseverance in police service. On October 20th, 2018, at approximately 21:43 hours, Officer Gatfield responded to a report of intoxicated suicidal male who drove away from his residence in his vehicle. The male's wife informed police that he was suicidal, possibly armed, and made threats to shoot police if they contacted him. Officer Gatfield conducted follow-up, pinged the location from the male's cell phone, searched the areas he may have gone, and made numerous phone calls to his phone. Eventually, Officer Gatfield was able to contact him over the phone, at which time he shared his personal struggles he was going through. She confirmed he was armed with a firearm and established a rapport with him, convincing him to meet her at the police department. He responded to the police department and was initially hesitant to come in, but reluctantly came in to meet with Officer Gatfield, where she ensured his safety, her own, and then took him into protective custody without further incident. Officer Gatfield's dedication to locating this male and providing him with the help he needed is commendable, and Officer Gatfield is truly a credit to this department. Officer Gatfield would like to issue you the Distinguished Service Award.
Congratulations. Good job.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Good job. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Officer Helmuth. Officer Roberts. And Sergeant Harrison is gone on this one, so we'll make sure we get that to him as well. Step forward. By order of the Chief of Police on this date, Sergeant Harrison, Officer Helmuth, and Officer Roberts will be awarded the Life Saving Award. On November 15th of 2011, the City of Post Falls Police Department established the Life Saving Award, which is presented to the department members that have distinguished themselves by performing or reacting to a life-threatening situation in a positive and professional manner. The member's reaction to the situation must have saved or substantially prolonged the life of another person, existing with a strong possibility that if action was not taken, loss of life or critical injury to another person would have occurred. On December 27th, at approximately 10:22 in the morning, Officer Helmuth, Officer Roberts, and Sergeant Harrison responded to a medical assist call for service, where they found an 83-year-old male with no pulse and not breathing. These officers worked alongside Kootenai County Fire and Rescue personnel, performing CPR for approximately 30 minutes until they regained a pulse and the patient could breathe on his own. Apologize for that. Through follow-up, we learned that this patient is currently doing well and can respond to commands and interact with the medical staff at Kootenai Health. There is no doubt that the quick response of these officers and the effective teamwork of the Kootenai County Fire and Rescue responders saved this patient's life. These officers are truly an asset to this department and should be proud of their exceptional performance. So this evening we're presenting you with the Life Saving Award. Thank you.
Trying to get out of the picture too.
You're all taller than me.
Yeah, you got it. What was I talking? Sorry.
Excellent job. Thank you.
Great work. Thanks.
Yeah, congratulations.
Great work. Thank you. Excellent work. Thank you.
Good job.
Excellent work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're down to our final two. Officer Christensen, please come forward. We'll be able to save some of our time here as I just read what the Police Life Save Award was for. So, Officer Christensen, by order of the Chief of Police on this date, Officer Christensen is hereby awarded the Life Saving Award. On November 4th, 2018, at approximately 20:28 hours, officers responded to a report of a male patient who was unresponsive. Officer Christensen was on scene within 4 minutes of the call being aired and began CPR immediately when discovering the patient was not breathing. Officer Christensen was able to walk the patient's wife through the process of getting the AED ready for use. Officer Christensen administered a shock as directed, then continued with chest compressions until Kootenai County Fire and Rescue arrived on scene and took over life-saving measures. By the time Kootenai County Fire and Rescue transported the patient, he had regained a pulse. Through follow-up, we learned that this patient has recovered and is doing well. It is without a doubt that the quick response and skilled life-saving efforts of Officer Christensen is why this man is still alive today. Officer Christensen is truly a credit to this department. I wanted to add a little on this one, as we've got family from him here this evening. He was going to be here with us this evening himself, was ecstatic that the Officer Christensen was receiving the award, but they had another tragic event happen in the family, and unfortunately he's out of the area. But wife and son are here to recognize this as well, so thank you for all you do.
I don't have to worry about it because at night is way taller than me.
I did. Great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent work. Thank you.
Nicely done.
Wow, you guys. Did you have that device in your car? Nice. I don't know that we have those in all cars.
Detective John Mason. Looking sharp. By order of the Chief of Police on this date, Detective John Mason is hereby awarded the Police Star. On October 7, 2011, the City of Post Falls Police Department established the Police Star Award. The Police Star is the department's second highest award given for superior performance of duty. On October 11, 2017, the Post Falls Police Department received a report of a possible child abuse case from the Child Protective Services Division of Health and Welfare. They reported a 6-year-old boy was being rushed to Sacred Heart in critical condition. Detective Mason was assigned to the case to conduct the follow-up investigation. Detective Mason worked the case relentlessly through countless interviews, search warrants, expert consultations, and research that revealed the facts of several years of torture. He located evidence that this child was beaten, whipped, tied up, locked in rooms and cages, starved, and isolated for years. For just under 10 months, Detective Mason continued to uncover this unbelievable story through a grueling investigation. The offenders were finally prosecuted in December of 2018 and brought to justice. This child is now freed of the abuse that he endured for so many years. Detective Mason has shown a sincere dedication to the public service, and this is a fine example of his extraordinary police work. He's truly a credit to this department. So, John, we award you the Police Silver Award Star.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thanks for the hard work.
Have us all crying up here.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Special place in heaven for you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Chief and Captain, and everyone involved. Thanks for the family members that showed up. There's many reasons to be proud to be part of the Post Falls City family, and these are just some of the examples. So congratulations to all. Well-deserved. Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda? We do need one tonight.
We do need to amend the agenda to add an executive session under Idaho Code 74206 subsection 1F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet litigated but imminently likely to be litigated.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Are there any declarations of conflict tonight? Seeing none, would you please present the consent calendar, Shelley?
Item A is minutes from the June 4th, 2019 City Council meeting. Item B is payables May 28th through June 10th, 2019. Item C is contract with Interstate Concrete for paving of the 4th Avenue parking lot. Item D is Maplewood Villas Subdivision Plat application. Item E is easements and rights-of-way dedication from Schneidmiller Land Company for Howell Sewer Interceptor project. Item F is lease agreement with Intermax for water tower antenna space. And item G is site assessment agreement with Spokane Environmental Services.
Any questions on the consent calendar?
I have a question,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. Shelley, can you explain to me why on item C, the contract with Interstate Concrete is being paid out of park impact fees?
It is not being paid out of park impact fees. Does that incorrectly state that somewhere? So the paving for the 4th Avenue parking lot is being paid out of general fund.
Okay.
We had received some rebate funds from urban renewal and from the closure of the city center district, and those are the funds that are being used to pay for the additional costs on that project at this time.
Okay. It says in the packet that fiscal impact or other source of funding is park impact fees. So that's why I had that question.
Is that on the memo?
It is.
It is.
And who wrote the memo?
Mike Zimmerman.
Oh, okay, well, Mike Zimmerman reused a memo and did not change that. It is coming from general fund.
Okay.
Good catch.
Good enough.
I apologize for the error.
So can we amend that for the official record?
Do we,
I think it'll be noted in the minutes.
We'll put it in the
Perfect.
minutes. Thank you.
any other questions?
No.
Seeing none, entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Wolf.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda tonight is public hearings. We do have one, the Acuff annexation. With that, I'll open the public hearing.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council President Wilhelm, and council members. My name is Jamie Hayes. I'm Planner 1 in the Community Development Department, and I am here to present the Acuff annexation, case file ANNX-1-2009. The owner and the applicant are both J. Patrick Acuff. City Council is being asked to review the annexation request of approximately 20 acres and to make a decision of approval or denial of the proposed annexation of the high-density multifamily R3 residential zoning. As you can see in the hatched red is the subject site of the proposed annexation. We have Highway 41 running north and south, Greens Ferry as well running north and south, and Prairie Avenue running east and west. This in green is the additional 60 acres of the technology mix zone that this city is currently working on, processing. The land use is agricultural, designated by Kootenai County, and it's vacant with no physical characteristics to note. The water provider is Ross Point Water District, and the sewer is provided by the city of Post Falls. The annexation of the subject site is attempting to be annexed coincidingly with the 40 acres directly to the south, planning for compatible and orderly development, including an extension of coordinated public services. You can find this exhibited in the staff report under S4. Just to show you what this kind of looks like, the general area, we have the subject site with the zoning request of R3, the technology mix zone. We have, and this is what the other proposal looks like. We have the highway or the Prairie Avenue right here, some community commercial services, some medium density going down to R1. That is what they are trying to work together to accomplish. The Planning and Zoning Commission made a request of R3, approved a request of R3 with the 6 zoning change criteria that you see presented here. If you have any questions about the zone change criteria, we can address this later. I'm happy to answer questions. City Council is asked to focus on the annexation policies, which there are 11 of. Starting with number 1, the annexation procedure should follow the procedural requirements by Idaho state and local city ordinances, which it does. All applicable fees and procedures have met the requirements of both. Number 2, that the zoning of land be annexed must comply with the City of Post Falls comprehensive plan and other master plan and facility plans. With the zoning designation of R3 on Prairie Avenue, which is supposed to be expanded, and then the technology mix zone right next to a commercial corridor, this meets our comprehensive plan policies. There's complementary uses in the commercial and residential mix and the technology mix zone and the street classifications there. Number 3 is that land to be annexed should enable completion or continuation of pedestrian networks. As part of the annexation, it will be required for them to supply connectivity and to complete the utility and easements for Prairie Avenue on the north side. Number 4 is the timing of annexation should be coordinated with opportunities for orderly development, addressing by the comprehensive plan and recommendations by master plans such as the water reclamation, the transportation master plan, parks, and emergency services. The proposed annexation is within an area of increased growth and would be considered orderly development of the public system, considering the technology mix zone, the commercial corridor, the Tullamore PUD development that is just to the southeast of the subject site, and with the concurrent development, the proposed concurrent development of the annexation to the south. Number 5 is that when service needs can be properly addressed, priority should be given to annexing infill pockets that are surrounding by incorporated city lands that have utility infrastructure readily available and areas that support a development pattern of increased intensity near urban core. This is an area experiencing intense growth, and specifically along the technology mix zone that will shortly be realized in close proximity to Highway 41 and the roadway expansion of 41 and Prairie. The annexation with an R3 zoning designation would be considered a logical extension, considering the available infrastructure that is already there. Number 6 is development potential to be realized on newly annexed land should allow sufficient intensity to offset fiscal impacts of new annexations and to maintain the level of service that is already there. And this is addressed by impact fee and surcharges, which are issued with building permits. I won't read all of this, but the gist of this is that undue burden should not be placed on existing capital facilities or operating services, and water rights from lands to be annexed should be included in the mitigation considering evaluated and received by the city of Post Falls. Well, there are no water rights that we have identified thus far. And as far as providing undue stresses on capital facilities, it's considered consistent with the adopted master plans for the water reclamation. When they made the water, or when they developed the wastewater master plan and the transportation plan, they planned for this growth in this area. So they are capable of providing the services necessary. Number 8 is that annexation studies should evaluate environmental and public service factors that are significant to the lands. There are no environmental service or factors that are of significance there, and it has been an area designated for planned growth with the water reclamation master plan and the transportation plan, as I had stated earlier. Any proposed development within the annexation area would be consistent with what is anticipated within the comprehensive plan and those master plans. Number 9 addresses that the city may establish annexation fees and the amount appropriate to cover costs for planning future public infrastructure. And the annexation fees are based on the current fee resolutions that have been adopted. This, I kind of wanted to show the bigger picture of what is going on in the area. We have the subject site hatched in black. We have approximately 260 acres of technology mix zone. Everything in red is the commercial corridor, and we have part of the Tullamore PUD, which is a little bit more dense as well, with apartments, cottage-style homes. We have a large park right here, a regional park, and then to the south there's also a fairly large Tullamore Park, splash pads. We have single-family residential here in yellow, and then we also have the proposed annexation of these 40 acres coming in with that mixed density request as well along a busy Highway 41 and Prairie Avenue right there, and Greens Ferry as well. There is a bus route that is proposed to be running along Prairie, as well as the North Prairie Trail. That would run somewhere in this general vicinity, giving just another amenity to the R3 designation, as well as places for people to shop, work in the commercial zone, as well as that technology mix zone. Number 10 addresses the owners of land seeking annexation should grant or provide necessary right-of-ways and easements. And as I stated earlier, part of Prairie Avenue would be designated for utility and easements and sidewalks with this annexation. And number 11 is that the proposed annexation should provide means to assure logical extension of the park systems, and that is done through impact fees. That's just one of the fees that are collected through impacts, as well as streets, public safety, and then the parks. As part of this annexation, there are agreement inclusions, and one is that all water rights associated with the property will need to be granted to the city or to a municipal water purveyor designated by the city in order to provide service to the property. We've established that there are no known water rights as of right now that we have uncovered. Dedication of right-of-ways, as I had stated earlier, an accompanying 15-foot sidewalk, drainage, and utility easements. Payment of sanitary sewer surcharge in the amount of just over $1,800, which would be adjusted annually per service unit if served by the future 12th Avenue lift station, and none if served by the 3rd Avenue. And then fourth, that side access subject to the KMPO critical access corridor policy. These are all the agencies routed. And Post Falls and Kootenai County both remain neutral on the proposal. The Kootenai County Fire and Rescue District does say that they are not in their boundaries and that they would need to annex in prior to any development of the property. Do you have any questions or comments for me as of right now?
No.
Could you go back to an earlier picture? I'm confused a little bit about the land that's outlined in yellow. Is that already annexed into the city?
Are you speaking about this right here?
Yes.
That is being processed as of right now.
What does processed mean?
Warren, would you like to speak on that?
Sure, it's gone through the hearing process. It's been approved for annexation, but it hasn't been recorded yet. So it's in that weird place. It's approved, it just hasn't gone through getting to the county, getting recorded, having the tax commission actually assign it to the city boundary. So it isn't showing on our maps yet, but for all intents and purposes, it's been annexed.
Okay.
It just needs to complete the process.
Yeah, one of my questions was, it's my understanding that any annexation has to be adjacent to already
You're
existing
correct, and that is
contiguous.
partially what makes this presentation possible and the applicant possible.
So you're correct, and before we could record this annexation tonight, the tech park piece is going to need to be recorded
Okay.
so that we can make sure that we're complying with the law.
Okay. Also, to the south, you mentioned and you showed a picture of R2 and R1. Is that property been annexed into this?
That, I'm going to go up to this,
Yeah.
and that was actually supposed to be heard tonight. The applicant had to leave and go out of town, but the point is, I guess, is that they found out that they both wanted to annex in, and they wanted to work concurrently to try to bring the utility infrastructure in a different way. Now, if they don't annex in, or if they get denied for whatever reason, the Acuff property can still go down Prairie and down south on Greens Ferry to hook up to infrastructure.
Okay.
That piece is scheduled to be heard on July 16th now. We had to push it off because they were out of town.
Okay.
You okay?
No, not yet. Next question. There is a park proposed at the corner of Prairie and Cecil, is that correct? Right,
Right here?
Yeah.
This is the regional park, yes.
but it hasn't been developed as yet.
It is in the process of being developed. It's slated for development, as well as the Tullamore Park, which is, as we heard in the beginning, that is going to be, we're having the grand opening.
Right.
So two fairly large parks.
But it's not, there's no ground broken on that Cecil Park.
It will, I mean, they're working on it.
Okay. Is there not a clause in there that any new development has to be within a quarter mile of an existing park?
Well, from here to Highway 41 is less than a mile. It's a little over half a mile. So I would bank on that being within that distance or close to it.
But that's not an existing park.
But I mean, the point is for it to be a park at some point. So
Here's my biggest concern, and I
Sure.
guess I would address the rest of the council on this. And that is, my concern is that the tech park, although it's planned, although the Cecil Park is planned, what I don't want to see happen is that we annex this property into the city and it becomes an island unto itself. We don't know, I mean, I know the people wanted to be here for the property that's outlined in blue, but the reality is that it could be a long time before any of the rest of that develops. And I'm concerned that the property that we're considering right now is going to fall into that island of developed property that doesn't really fit a lot of what we've talked about in terms of our comprehensive plan. You know, there's the connection to anything else isn't there. So it doesn't necessarily fit all the criteria for annexation as it exists today. I know there's all these plans that it will, but I don't know that it does today. I'm wondering if this couldn't be put off until such time as some of that other development, some of these other things are done.
John Manley, Planning Manager here with the City of Post Falls. Good evening, Council. When it regards to open space, you're correct, the regional park, they haven't broken ground yet, so it's not available kitty corner to this. As far as the commentary, we did send this out for a concern to the Parks Department for providing level of service, and that's part of their review. They have a level of service map that they look at. I can't specifically say that whether this is within their ring or not, but I know we didn't receive that concern from the Parks Department.
Well, I'm raising that as a
Yeah, and that's a valid concern. I'm not trying to mitigate that it isn't a valid concern, and not something that's not important to consider. I just wanted to add additional commentary.
Okay.
In addition, with lands to the west, I do know that there'll be, I'm not saying create an open space problem, but staff does continually work with applicants to shift parks and open space where that level of service is most needed.
Okay. I guess that's just my concern is I'm not even sure that if Cecil Park existed right now, that it would be within a quarter mile of that development.
I think it's right at a quarter.
Is it?
It's like a block away.
I think it's
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how wide.
Well,
it is.
it's
to the corner.
right here, you're talking about,
I guess what it
like
comes down
400,
to
yeah.
is this. We develop this piece of property, R3, apartments. Apartments means kids. There's no connectivity between that piece of property and the rest of the city at this point in time. There's no sidewalks. I mean, yes, we would require the applicant to put a sidewalk along Prairie Avenue that goes nowhere.
you're correct, they would only be responsible for their portion in front of their project.
Right.
You could potentially have a span until that technology mix part developed, where there wouldn't be a multi-use trail and or sidewalk.
Right. So I feel that we're just getting a little bit ahead of ourselves in terms of approving this annexation with nothing else around it really developed at this point
Could
in
speak
time.
to, ask Warren, since it's an annexation, can they look at parks and having additional criteria as part of annexation that wouldn't otherwise be through zoning?
So let me step back just for a second. There isn't a requirement in our code for the zoning criteria
No, not the
for
zoning.
proximity to parks. We don't have any requirements in annexation. Annexations are one of those creatures that are a legislative matter, so there's not approval criteria per se. There's considerations that are built into our comprehensive plan. Those are things that you think about, but they're not, none of those are dispositive one way or the other. It's not like a finding that we would make in a quasi judicial hearing. You can certainly postpone a matter if you want to hear it at another time. That's always an option. I would suggest to you that we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because we still have a couple of folks that have signed up to testify before we start having
Okay.
deliberations and figuring out where we want to go.
I guess that was my question was, are we really complying with the 11 attributes or requirements of an annexation?
Yeah, and again, they're not requirements, they're considerations, they're things to think about.
Okay.
Do you have a question? Is this within the urban renewal district?
No, this is not being the urban renewal district that we just established.
Right.
I had a question. Sorry.
Go ahead, Chief.
We know that the state's going to start improvements on Highway 41 in 2020, so is there any plan to, what's the date for improvements on Prairie Avenue?
From what I understand, they will not be going to this site. The farthest they'll go would be, I believe it's up to the regional park.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, I was looking to Bill, he nodded yes, so.
Because they would be improvements, they would put in sidewalks, assuming probably up to that point, but it's not going to go to this property that far.
No, and
Still would
then,
be a gap then. on
yeah,
that
and then the
bit.
regional park improvements would bring it only to this point.
Yeah.
And then after that, you'd be looking at that gap of services that would go from this point to,
That point.
yep.
Is that about 660 feet, John?
Off the cuff, it's either
7 inches.
330 or 660. Only thing I can remember is the size of an acre. As far as the front of a 5 acre or 20, I can never get that memorized, but it's whatever the legal frontage is on 20 acres, that distance. What's that? So 5 is 330 by 660.
Any other questions or comments before we hear the proponent? Thank you. Does the proponent wish to speak tonight? Mr. Acuff, name for the record, please, and we'll have your timer going off on the desk up front.
Hi, my name is Pat Acuff. I've been around here for a while. I think that my understanding is with 41 going to be improved, Prairie going to be improved. In fact, they're going to, somewhere around 15 or 20 feet, they're going to take off of both sides of the road. With the park 660 feet away on Cecil, it seems to me that, and he's right, it might be premature, but it's coming. That 335 acres that is technical industrial, I'm not sure that 20 acres of housing next door to that and surrounded, but with the 60 acres that they're working on to be annexed, would front me on the north and the east, Prairie on the south, and a 5-acre tract on the west. R3 was suggested to be a good zone. I mean, I've done an industrial park. That's not a good neighbor for housing development. Transition apartments, that's pretty much standard in zoning codes. I think this meets everything that is in your comprehensive plan. It meets roads, parks, next to industrial, transportation. I don't know that, and I agree with him that it's in the future, but again, it's coming. So the industrial park has already been approved for most of it except for 60 acres, so 200 and some acres has already been approved to my understanding. I don't know that you have much R3 in the city of Post Falls, but if there's ever a place for R3, in my belief, that's it. Questions?
Any questions from Mr. Acuff?
So you stated, Mr. Acuff, that it was 660 feet from the corner of your property to the corner of the regional park?
I believe so.
Okay.
If it isn't, it's 1320. I'm not sure exactly. I think Cecil is 660 feet away, but I'm not sure.
It is 660.
It's been confirmed.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Acuff?
Have you developed any conceptual plans yet for this property?
No.
So just going to start from scratch?
And this is, if it gets approved, this is a ways away. I mean, this is something that's just not going to happen overnight, nor is that industrial park, nor is the property across the street that's trying to get annexed of 40 acres for, I think their plan is to have commercial along Prairie, which is across the street from me, and then R2 and R1 as they go back to the south, excuse me. So basically, I'll be pretty much on commercial, technical, industrial, and then I don't know about the 5 acres. I know that when the Planning Commission met, there was 4 people that showed up that were neighbors that wanted to talk, and they were all in favor of it. There wasn't one dissenting letter or spokesman.
I do have one more question. You indicated that you weren't in a big hurry to do any development on this property, so is there a particular reason why you want to have it annexed today?
Well, I think it's prudent to, I think the time is right, yeah. With what's going on there, I don't see any reason to wait. Now, the wait would be on waiting for sewer and water, and waiting for basically sewer and water, I guess, which is a ways away. But it depends on the people that were supposed to be here tonight that canceled across the street. I mean, they're a big player in this. Because the sewer and water's got, well, not the water, but the sewer's got to go through them, and we're trying to work out an agreement to kind of share the cost on that. I think if they were here, it would maybe sound a little better, because if you approve them, which I think you would, because it's not standalone by itself. It's north of Tolomar and whatever else is out there, but they're not here. So and they'll be here in July, I guess, but I don't, to answer your question, I think the time's right. I mean, it's been applied for, it's ready to go, but it's a long ways from being built out, that's for sure.
Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Thanks.
Shannon? Thank you. Wishing to testify in opposition, Bob Flowers.
Bob Flowers, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Well, I think Mr. Wolf kind of summed up most of what I had to say. This piece of land is not connected to the city at this point, so it doesn't meet the annexation criteria or recommendations. We're all betting on the come here. They're going to improve Highway 41, 2 to 3 years. They're going to improve Prairie someday. They're going to have a park down here someday. It doesn't fit. It does not fit in there at this time. And it shouldn't be improved until maybe things are filled in. It worries me that other annexation that didn't show up tonight. I've seen CCS turn into high-density multifamily housing quite a few times with just a special use permit. R2 zoning, that allows at the maximum 18 units per acre. None of this, it's all being bet on the come. The roads right now, 41, Prairie, none of that will handle any of this. This is the wrong time and the wrong place for this. Let's let our industrial park build out some, see what they're going to put in there, see what's really happening, and then maybe revisit this at another time. But right now, that is not the place. 20 acres, even with your setbacks, could be 300 apartments. That just does not fit out there in the middle of the prairie. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Flowers. Also wishing to speak and in opposition, Lacey Green.
Can I walk this way?
Sure. Come up here, though. We're going to make you sit up here. And name for the record, please.
Lacey Green. I'm opposed to this. Bear with me. I'm not a good public speaker or anything like that. So, I'm a farmer's wife. I live on the prairie. I daily see the influx of impact from all the building that's happening currently, and it's sickening. It's disheartening. This, in my opinion, would have such an impact in regards to the intersection at Prairie and Greens Ferry. By far already needs a light. You're going to have multiple people coming in and out of these proposed housing developments. Yes, they might be years coming for them to be there, but these are all things that probably need to be introduced into planning for the assessment of growth. Schools, our schools are already overwhelmed as they are. I haven't heard any new proposals of schools in the area. I don't think it's a good fit for our community. There's a bunch of other proposed or possibilities of this land usage that would overall better our community as opposed to being detrimental on impact for traffic and more litter on the ground and impact on schools, impact on grocery stores. Grocery stores, I can't tell you how many times throughout the week I've gone to grocery stores and right now they can't even keep up with supplying and stocking because stuff is just going off the market. These are just small, minute things, and there's probably 100
bunch more. But I don't think it's a right fit, period. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. And just for information, there is a new elementary school schedule for the east side of the road.
Okay.
41. Just
On 41?
On the east side of 41, Foxdale.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
That's all the folks who wish to testify. Mr. Acuff, you can rebut if you so choose.
Well, I admit it looks kind of premature, but maybe next year it won't, or the year after. But one of my thoughts in talking to the planning staff about it was the traffic on Prairie, if this industrial park gets going, you know, I think there'd be employees that would live in this project that would work in that industrial park, at least some. And rather than have them come out on Prairie and go around to 41 or whatever, it would be nice and convenient if there was access roads off of this 20 into that 300 and some acres. So they could just drive on that road right into work. The second thing is, I know that's a lot of units and I know it's high density. I live in Fernand Village and I've lived there for 39 years. Lake Villa Apartments has been there for 40 some years. It's 260 or 280 units on 12 acres. And coming out of Fernand, that's 2 blocks from my house. And there's only one road basically out of Fernand, and that's East Sherman. That road is never plugged up. And there might be very seldom 1 or 2 cars in front of you at that stoplight. It just is, for whatever reason, maybe the tenants are older, I don't know what it is, but that project has never created a traffic problem on a 2-lane street for the last 40 years for that kind of density. And I'm not saying this would be the same for this project, but somehow it works there, and it's not the big ogre and big bottleneck that everybody thinks it is. Now you add up everybody else up and down Prairie, yeah, maybe. But when it comes to 4-lane, I would think that would help solve the problem, just as it has in the east end of that on Prairie, when that used to be 2 lanes and now it's 4 lanes, and they got all those subdivisions there, and it's busy, but it works. I think that these kind of projects are market driven, and somebody went out there and built 300 units. Just because you build it doesn't necessarily mean they'll come. So I think this is tied, in my mind, being in the real estate business around here for 52 years, that this is going to be market driven by that technical park and Highway 41, and if they get that shopping center and all that stuff that they've been planned forever in there. And that's why I think this is a good fit. I'm in the real estate business and have been for a long time, like I said, but I'm a native, and I understand the growth and the pain in the rear end it is and the traffic. Pretty hard to legislate against that. The idea is to plan for it, which I think this project meets everything in the comprehensive plan, to roads, to parks, to you name it. I mean, all 11 things in my mind. I know there's some disagreement on it, but I don't think there's one thing that is in your comp plan that this doesn't meet. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, I'll close the public hearing. Council. Linda.
I've been thinking about this for a couple of days, and the tech park, if I remember right, when they presented that to us, did have some multifamily housing in it, and going along with thinking about that, if the tech park were being built out right now, and there was a need for this to be annexed and zoned R3, I would be in favor. But at this point, and this is not normal for me, as we all know, but at this point, Until we see what's going to happen with that tech park, I think this just is a little bit early coming. Do I think it is going to eventually be zoned R3? I would say yes, probably it is. And I think that the tech park will probably drive that. Sort of like Mr. Acuff was saying, that it would be market-driven, and people working in that tech park would most likely, some of them want to live that close by. So that's just my thoughts.
I think we're premature as well. I would like to wait and see what the other property has to offer, and how they see it fitting in with the city and those infrastructure improvements that we've been talking about. Traffic is a concern for me. Fire protection's a concern for me. While the fire district states that they aren't in and they would require annexation, I think for our record, we should have something in there to that effect as well. But I think we're just a little early.
Steve?
Well, I got to disagree with my colleagues here. I'm kind of looking at the master plan from the technical park, and as Linda said, it does include some multifamily, so it means we're going to have it out there anyway. And I think if we know the bottom part is going to come in for an annexation, and I think it all makes a little bit of sense, but I see this probably being developed over time, a long time, but I think within the annexation, it gives a chance to master plan the whole area and give some thought to it.
Joe?
I'm going to agree with Linda and Lynn and Councilor Wolf here in that the applicant's absolutely right that when the tech park builds out, when the park builds out, when Prairie's built out, when Highway 41's built out, then there is no better place for R3 than right there at that spot. But as I've said in some previous annexation or zone change discussions here recently in the last year, stuff's not done yet. Highway 41 is just getting plugged full. I live on the east side of Dysfunction Junction, and it gets harder and harder to get through that area. The roads, as they stand right now, just can't handle it, and won't be able to handle it for a few more years. And yeah, it's only 300 units, but stuff is still being built out that was passed years ago. I'm not anti-growth, but I believe that because people want to move here and we can't stop that. It's a great place to live, and the only way to stop it is to stop annexing altogether, and which means that all of our housing prices go up, which means all of our taxes go up, and we get taxed out of our houses. So that's a really ugly double-edged sword. But I think we need to be ahead of the growth and not be trying to catch up to it all the time. And we're not ahead of it. We're not caught up to what's already happening. So I think the applicant's right. It's a great location for it someday. Who knows? That's 2 years from now, 5 years from now, a year from now. But the way, if you stand on those corners right now and look around, that day's not here yet.
Mr. Wolf?
I would just add a couple things to what I've already said. Number one, I fully respect Mr. Acuff. I know he's been in the business a long time, but just the fact that, that's his plan doesn't mean that that's the plan of somebody else that could come in and do something. If we approve this tonight, they could immediately start developing on it tomorrow. It's annexed in, it's R3. It's ready to go. So it can't necessarily say that it would wait. I would disagree with staff in that this meets the criteria that we've established. If we look at item 3, it says land to be annexed should enable completion and continuation of a pedestrian network that connects the neighborhoods to amenities and activity centers throughout the community. We're not ready to connect to anything. If we go down to number 4, timing of annexation should be coordinated with opportunities for orderly development of public systems. Included in that are water, sewer, transportation, parks. Our comprehensive plan kind of gives us that direction that we want to be within a quarter mile of a park. 660 feet is more than a quarter mile if you go corner to corner. Again, just doesn't quite meet. If we go all the way down to number 11, again, we run into that problem where we say annexations should provide a logical extension of the park system. Well, I think we're missing it a few times. I agree with Mr. Acuff. Someday, that property will be R3 and it'll be providing housing for people in the tech park. I just think we're getting a little bit ahead of the game tonight. So I'll leave it to
With the tech park, as you were reading those, the tech park didn't fit some of that criteria also. And I believe it was a unanimous decision to annex that land. I think it's inevitable. And I think even though right now that looks like, oh, wow, that doesn't look like a good use, I know that 6 months from now, there is not going to be apartments built on that. I see no reason to wait on that. I think it's inevitable that that would be annexed, but I appear to be in a minority.
Let me weigh in, if you're done, Carrie.
I am.
Thank you. I'm going to agree with something Mr. Wolf said, and Mr. Acuff, you know, I know who you are, and I'm sure that whatever you do, it will be a quality project. I have no concern about that. I presented to a group earlier today, and I was talking about the impact multifamily has. And actually heard from a fellow banker down in Boise who said that he was at a presentation down in Boise last week, and someone made the comment that the mayor of Post Falls doesn't like apartments. Which I thought was interesting. It's not that I don't like apartments, I just have to question the number we have and the sustainability of them. But I take a little different approach than Mr. Acuff. Build it and they will come. And I say that because one of the gentlemen sitting next to me at the meeting today was telling me that they've got 3 big complexes. They've got 100% occupancy, 100% occupancy, and I think it was 97 or 98% occupancy. As they're building these big projects, and I like the bigger projects, just so you know. I would much rather see a project like this that would be master planned with the technology zone and the other surrounding areas. I'd like to see a master plan so you know what's coming in, as opposed to people picking up a lot here and there and saying I could put 18 or 20 or 40 units on it. But as they were building out these other projects, before they would complete the first building, it was completely full. They'd stop with a waiting list. They'd start on the next building. So build it and they will come. And because of the low vacancy rates, I think you'd see immediate activity once its construction begins. So is it inevitable? Maybe. I can't say. I know we talked about multifamily in the technology zone, and when we took action to approve it, we limited the number of multifamily. We limited the density that would be allowed on the technology zone property. So again, it may come up down the road, and it may not, but I'm not going to get to vote anyway. I thought I might get a chance to vote tonight, but I don't think I'm going to. But again, I think if it's built, it will be a nice project, but I would concur that timing might be an issue for me. And once activity begins in the technology zone, I think that changes the whole ballgame. But with that, I'd entertain a motion.
I would move to deny Acuff annexation ANNX 0001-2019.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Borders.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Thorson.
Nay.
Malloy.
Aye.
Anthony.
Nay.
Wolf.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and your time.
So we're gonna have
The second public hearing that was scheduled has been removed. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business, and that's a declaration of intent to sell property at 310 North Spokane Street.
So I guess that's me.
That's you.
I'm over here tonight.
I was looking to the deal.
So you have in your packet tonight the staff report regarding this property. As you recall, there's some history of this property. We acquired this property in a trade with Kootenai County a year and a half or so ago. We went out at that point in time to seek proposals for development of that property. We didn't receive any proposals at that point in time, and so we decided to sit on it for a while, see and essentially let the market develop a little bit. In last I want to say the end of last year, we came to you and said, we're receiving some inquiries about some folks that would like to potentially acquire this. Council, would you like us to proceed with auctioning this off? The direction at that point in time was to get a broker's opinion of probable cost so that we could begin the process. So tonight, we're asking for you to essentially set for us the minimum amount that you would be willing to take as we begin this process. We've included in the packet for your review of the broker's opinion of probable cost that establishes what they think the value of the property is. When we go out to begin the process of declaring property surplus and auctioning it off, you can set a minimum value or you can set no minimum value. But if you set a minimum value, that's the least that we will take once we get to that point. From here, once we have that price, we would set a public hearing, hold the public hearing, assuming that the public hearing, after that the council wants to proceed, we would then advertise a public auction.
Mr. Wilson, for the record, and maybe you mentioned, I missed it, can you give us what that broker's
I'm
opinion
looking
value was?
right now. I don't have it.
I have it up.
23,081.
I'm sorry, 223?
223,081.
081. Thank you, I just wanted that on the record.
$850 a foot.
Okay. Council, how'd you like to proceed on this?
I would move to approve.
I have a question.
Oh,
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure, is that all right, Linda? You want to make?
Fine with
is that
me.
right? Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do we have any idea how much money we have into this property? I hate to lose money for the city.
I don't remember.
We paid,
Let me ask a better question. Will the 223, in your opinion, cover our cost
No.
in the property?
no, we paid more than that for the property that we acquired next to the DMV that we traded then for this property.
Okay.
however,
Part of that
it
was to
saved us
reflect-
from having a parking lot there.
True.
So
And we
what's
get
that
access to
worth
their
us?
parking after hours.
Strategic.
I'm just, I guess it's, part of me says, trying to be that steward of taxpayers' money, that we spent X amount of dollars. I hate to lose money on this if there's a chance that we could make money. And I guess if we're going to set a price, I'd want to set that price closer to what, versus just the estimate.
Well, the other side of that too, though, I agree with what you're saying. However, you're taking a piece of property that would be off the tax rolls, and we're going to put it back on the tax rolls if we sell it and start generating additional income.
True. Okay.
So. Is that okay? I mean,
I'm good. I mean,
Plus the improvements of what will go on it
true.
will
Camp fees.
increase the tax base too.
yeah.
And I think we're losing about 70,000, maybe a little bit more.
That's, if I had to guess, and I always
I
hate to
would
guess
say
because then the
something-
numbers, then everybody takes it as, that's the actual number, but I think we paid around 300,000 for the other parcel that we traded.
I would
held to that
ask a question of
Yeah,
Councilor Wilhelm, being an expert in this field. Do you feel comfortable with that BPO? I think that's about,
Shelley and I actually talked about that when I saw it, and I thought that the supply and demand along Spokane Street, right now, we have offers on every piece of property on the west side of Spokane Street from 3rd coming north that are on the market right now. They're not closed, but we have offers on them. And so we talked a little bit about that, the supply and demand. There's really nothing on the east side of Spokane Street for sale right now. That might run that price up a little bit, but I'm not privy to who wants to make the offer or who wants to get into the bidding process or anything like that.
And there could be a bidding process, correct? I mean, are you not seeing properties that are bid up?
Yeah. We're seeing properties that are being bid up, so, and actually, that is more, that's happening more and more, so.
I'm all in favor of selling the property, because I don't like the idea of us holding on to it. I think the idea, like you guys all presented, was let's get something there that we can earn some taxes on. I'm just trying to then say, okay, let's sell it, but then what would be a good price to have as a minimum?
Well, and this is a BPO, but You don't have to set it at that. You can go higher if you want.
True.
But if you don't set a minimum, is it not correct that you have to sell it to the highest bidder?
So if you say with no minimum, you're going to sell it to whoever the high bidder is. So you'd want to set, my guess is, set a minimum of some sort.
My point was you could set a minimum higher than the
Right.
broker's opinion.
Right, yeah.
And Shannon just pulled the magic number, so it's 314.
Wow, good job, Shannon. That's
And
not,
I don't think we'll get 314 for that lot. But we could get more than 223.
so if we set it like at 250,
Yeah, I would say that would be reasonable. And maybe that would, but then think about this too, Al. If you put it at 223, you could spur a bidding war. Where if you put it at 250, is that less likely? I mean, that's just something to think about.
So this would have to go through an auction process, and we would either do that through a sealed bid process or through open auction.
Yeah.
And so we had been talking about the sealed bid process. So I don't know how that plays into the conversation here, because you wouldn't have the same counter offers going on that you would have with residential real estate.
Sealed bid.
Typically, you would set, here's your opening bid, here's your max bid. And so folks would have the chance in their written bids to submit, here's the most I'm going to go up to.
and if I'm correct, if we go through the auction process, we have no control over what happens on that piece of property.
Just the control of the zoning code.
The zoning,
They have to
yeah.
comply with city ordinances and regulations.
That it has to be commercial on the lower level, correct? Yeah,
Non-residential.
non-residential.
And parking was addressed too, was it not? Or was it?
So there are parking requirements in the code. There are potentially going to be changes to the parking requirements for some of the downtown, but that's not been adopted yet.
So is the action you want tonight to get our approval to sell the property or put it up for auction and also set a minimum? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes. So I suppose the actions are, do you want us to auction it off or not? And if you do want us to auction it off, what's the minimum price you want us to accept?
Can we include that in one motion?
Sure.
250.
I would move to approve the declaration of intent to sell the property at 310 North Spokane Street with a minimum bid at an auction process of $250,000.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Shannon, roll call, please.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Tricked you.
Thank you. Linda, thanks for your input on that. Next item on the agenda is citizens' issue, and this section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council regarding a city-related issue that is not on the agenda. If you wish to address council, please come forward and give your name for the record. Seeing no takers. Next item up is new business, additional engineering services agreement with TO Engineers for the Water Systems Improvement Project.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, Andrew Arbini, Utilities Project Manager. So my presentation this evening is on an additional services contract with TO Engineers for the Water System Improvements Project. You've probably seen this project taking place over the last several weeks as they've been doing some water line work in Spokane Street and then north and south of Southeast Way, mainly in the alleys. It's a simple map of the work and where they've been performing this work at. A couple pictures of some of the work. The two main components of this additional services request from TO Engineers has to do with how it was originally scoped. When TO scoped this project, it was the intention that city staff would provide and offset some of the construction observation out in the field and then the project management. Through the course of construction, We've encountered some unforeseen conditions, and that has increased the amount of involvement and time on TO's part, and also their involvement out in the field to supplement those efforts. Because of the unforeseen conditions we've encountered, it also extended the contractor's contract from 6 weeks to 9 weeks, so it added additional time, which also increased the amount of time and involvement that TO has had on the project. Example of that is a water main. We had a scheduled shutdown for evening work, and the contractor dug down, exposed the water main, had intended to connect into the main, and discovered that the existing fittings that were there were leaking. So that unfortunately, they were not able to do the work that evening and had to close up the trench and come back and reschedule that. So that added some additional time. So the original contract with TO was for $54,229.75. This additional services is for the $6,650. So that brings the total contract to $60,879.75. Before I open it up for any questions, I will add that I noticed in the agenda this evening, this is an action item, but we did not include the action item next to this in the listing. So this is more or less a discussion, opportunity to have a discussion, and then my proposal would be to bring this at the next council meeting and include this in the consent agenda. So with that said, I will answer any questions.
Andrew, was there a contingency built into the original contract?
Yes, there was. So with our engineering contract, we included a 5% contingency.
So this would exceed that?
Correct.
Okay. Al?
Explain to me again why we can't take action and just approve this tonight?
So, a year ago, the legislature passed a code amendment that required for anything that we're going to take action on the agenda, it has to say action item. There was apparently some confusion in some parts of the state that if it appeared on an agenda, that wasn't enough warning that something might happen. And so we have to put action item on everything that we take action on. This one is not listed as an action item, so we can discuss it, but we can't approve it tonight.
The city clerk messed up.
State trying to take care of us.
So does this hold up the project if we don't approve it?
We'll address that with TO engineers. We actually are in the final stages. So it's something we'd have to discuss with TO.
It's pretty much done.
But this keeps it moving forward, and we can at least include it on the July 2nd council consent agenda.
Would it be legally advisable to express what our intent would be for the consent agenda the next meeting?
Secret ballot?
Secret, sealed bid.
So, I'm not sure that you want to do that, but I think this is pretty obvious where we're headed, so.
Well, if I can't say that my intent would be to approve it on the consent calendar next meeting, then I won't say that.
Fair enough.
Any other questions?
I won't say that it makes perfect sense to me as well.
All right.
Are there any other questions?
See none. Thanks, Andrew. We do have a resolution tonight dealing with fiscal year 2020 tentative budget.
Move to approve the resolution fiscal year 2020 tentative budget in the amount of $68,365,490 with an increase not to exceed 3%.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion?
Just a note for the record and the viewers that this sets the maximum that the budget could possibly be. It's not what the budget will be. It just opens it up for discussion, so it cannot exceed that number.
And it's the process we use every year where you publish the maximum and then come down from there. It's normal course of business.
Thanks for adding that in.
No problem.
So we had a motion second, and roll call, please.
Malloy.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Orders.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Administrative staff reports, the proposed land exchange at Corbin Ditch.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Robbie Quinn, Parks Planner, here representing the Parks Department, and we are seeking your approval to move forward with, or to begin the public hearing process for land exchange. And this land exchange would take place along the Corbin Ditch. And for the past few years, the Parks Department has been working on improving or upgrading some of the boundaries along the Corbin Ditch, and this just happens to be one of those. So currently, we're looking at a property between the Lingle residence and the city of Post Falls, and this is on east of Pleasant View, south of I-90. And you can see with this map, the blue represents the city of Post Falls property, and it's bisecting parcels of Mr. Lingle's property. And so the proposal would be to do a foot-for-foot land exchange and kind of square up these property lines. So we would be swapping the blue to Mr. Lingle, and he would be swapping the yellow areas to the city of Post Falls. So ultimately, our property boundaries would go along these lines here. And as I said, this is a foot-for-foot exchange at no cost to either party other than recording of the deed, the survey, and the title report. And like I mentioned, we're seeking your approval to begin the public hearing process.
And this process with Corbin Ditch has been going on for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. So it moves us closer.
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions?
No. Robbie, does our property end at Pleasant View?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, because I was concerned that this was going to cause some sort of wonky something.
No, I think that's more to the east end of the Corbin Ditch.
Okay.
Okay. Need a motion?
I'd move to approve the proposed land exchange at the Corbin Ditch.
Second.
And is that?
Yeah, that's sufficient.
Good. Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Anthony?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Borders?
Aye.
Wilhelm?
Aye.
Thorson?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Robbie. Next item is mayor comments. I mentioned earlier I spoke to a group today, and several builders were there, developers. And at the end of the meeting, it was kind of nice to hear them say how much they enjoyed working with our staff with the city of Post Falls. And, you know, the people aren't always going to be happy with decisions made, but when you've got people coming forward with projects, it's incumbent on us to work with them. And I hear it repeatedly how much they enjoy working with the city of Post Falls. So, Bob, John, the whole staff, thank you very much. You do make our jobs easier, and it is nice to be known as a city that people do enjoy doing business with. So thanks again. We appreciate it. Council comments?
I have one thing. I just wanted to mention that coming up on June 30th, the Ironman 70.3 race will be taking place in Coeur d'Alene. Encourage everybody to come out, enjoy that race, and if you're so inclined to volunteer, please do so at ironman.com.
Are you going to be an Ironman again?
No, I am not.
Once an Ironman, always an Ironman.
That's right. Thank you.
I would like to congratulate graduates of River City Leadership Academy. We had 3 from the city. Our urban forester, Preston Hill, Mark Brandt. Thank you. And Mark Goodwin from the PD. So that is really, did you have perfect attendance?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was really a great class and a great graduation, and you all represented the city well, so kudos.
Thank you. We do need an executive session tonight.
Move to enter into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code
74-206 subsection 1F.
And further, that no action will be taken during this session, and that the session will last approximately
15 minutes.
15 minutes.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Wolf.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Wilhelm.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Anthony.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We'll enter executive.
Seems darker in here.
Call the meeting back to order. Is there a motion to come forward?
Adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.